Hello and welcome to the Poetic Turn. I'm Darren Stevens and he is
Evan Carlson.
And if you've listened to us before, you know we deal with poets, poems, poetry, and we are enthusiasts. We are not poetry scholars, although we've both read a lot of poetry and care about poetry and like poetry, and hope that maybe those people listening to this podcast share our enthusiasm or maybe connect to poetry a little bit closer through our efforts and our interest. Today we have an unusual version of the Poetic Turn, Evan.
Yes, indeed. For an unusual one and on a very hot summer day.
Yes.
Well. Even though this poem is a bit of a colder poem.
It's like a cold weather poem, yeah. Maybe the poem will help people cool off or be surrounded by darkness and dread. Because the poem we're going to assail today is one of the most famous poets in the English language. It is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, and it's really not like the kind of poetry we usually do.
No, it's not. It's probably not even, one of my favorite poems ever. We'll see after we read it. But it's very famous. Both of us have sort of interesting little connections to it, and some stories we'll share. And so in some ways, this is an episode of our particular connections to the poem.
Yes, our particular specific connections to this famous poem, and of course we'll read it later on. But there's a musical version of it, so stay tuned. If you haven't done so already, please like and share. If you're seeing us on YouTube, please leave a comment. Tell your friends about the Poetic Turn. That's how we gain listeners and followers. That's one way to gain listeners and followers. Another way would be for us to publicize this poem and let people know about it, Evan. That's not something we really do.
Yeah, we've got an Instagram, though, so you can follow us on the Poetic Turn on Instagram. There will be some videos from this posted, that kind of thing.
There are no excuses for anyone to ever not know about the Poetic Turn or follow it or embrace it or share it far and wide. But especially today, because a lot of people like this poem and its galumphing rhyming meter. A lot of people hate it. If you've listened to the Poetic Turn and you've heard our other poetry before this, introspective, subtle, well-thought poetry, this is not like the other poems on the Poetic Turn.
No, and maybe we'll give it a vote after we finish this episode. Do we love it or hate it?
Well, Evan, how about we start off? What is your story regarding The Raven?
Well, it's less to do with The Raven and more to do with Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh.
So I was in Bloomington, Illinois, where I went to college at Illinois Wesleyan. And there's a little thrift store out there. And, I was with some friends looking around there. And I was talking to my friend about my favorite poet, and that's Austin Smith. And so I was telling him about Austin Smith and all these poems by him. And then this guy comes up to me in this thrift store. And he says, I hear you're talking about poetry. Who's your favorite poet? And I said, well, it's this guy, Austin Smith. He's a great Midwestern poet. And the guy said, well, what about Edgar Allan Poe? And I said, well, yeah, I like him. I read The Raven in high school. And he puts out his hand to me to shake it, and he says, Steve Poe.
So his name?
His name is Steve Poe. He claimed that he was the son of Edgar Allan Poe. Not son, grandson, great-great-grandson.
Grandson, great.
But Edgar Allan Poe had no children. And so it's one of those moments that it has always stuck out to me a little bit and always perplexed me a little bit. But he really wanted that to be my favorite poet, Edgar Allan Poe. And he also said that he wanted to be a writer himself, though he hadn't really started. So I hope he has. But yeah.
Well, it's a a poem that's easily imitated. In fact, there have been many, many parodies of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, many parodies. And as we're going to hear, there's been an a cappella doo-wop musical version of the poem.
Yes.
For those who don't know, I was in an a cappella singing group for 5 years called The Four Guys Standing Around Singing. And we developed a musical version of The Raven, which became our encore for some years with that group. And so today, we will actually be hearing a recording of that. I'm going to include it in the podcast recording from the archive. Because that group was around from 85 to 90, so this was recorded in like 1988, and I'm not sure where Evan was in 1988. Actually, I know exactly where he was. He was not around, but
no.
But
I wasn't around to be tormented by this a cappella group.
Well, a cappella I love a cappella music. Someone was telling me about there's a play that's in a musical play in Chicago right now called Octet.
Octet. They've moved to the Goodman from the Raven Theater.
From the Raven Theater. Wait a minute.
The Raven Theater, yes, and we saw a great show there.
We did.
Top Girls. So
yes.
The a cappella is still in.
Acapella is still in.
Acapella having to do with ravens is still in.
Well, I'm a longtime singer and harmony singer. I'm a little bit over acapella, and I watched the trailer to Octet, Evan, and I thought, I don't want to live in that acapella world for an evening. I guess I should see it because I have such a history. Well, for 5 years, I did that for my living for about 3 of those years, and we performed all over the country. We did a National McDonald's commercial. We did many originals. It was a very clever group, very funny group. We actually, during that time, that was during the comedy club boom in the U.S., and we played every Catch a Rising Star comedy club in the country. And
wow.
Yeah.
And obviously you all had some affinity for poetry. What made you think of The Raven, which we will read at some point?
Well, I think it just the bouncy nature of the thing and its fame, and you could kind of as we'll hear as our audience will hear when they hear our version of it, the recording of it, it has a certain appeal, and it's just ripe for comedy and parody and play. So that's why we.
And that's a viable way to read a poem, I think. Is to have fun with it. What's fun to say? What's fun to expand on? Mark Yakic would probably enjoy that you all just sort of went down some rabbit holes with this version.
We did, and I meant to say, we talked about Austin Smith earlier, we have had Austin Smith on the Poetic Turn podcast, so please seek that out. He is a terrific writer. You should listen to that podcast episode and also get his books if you like.
Oh, yeah.
He's tremendous, and his poetry is nothing like the poem you're going to hear today on the Poetic Turn.
No. And is that an insult? Is that a compliment? We'll find out. I don't know.
We will find out.
Or it could be neither one.
That's right.
Well, would you like to give us a read of it, Darren?
Well, Evan, sure. I will absolutely do that. And I am in a long tradition of people who have read The Raven and read it out loud and performed it. We'll give it a try here. This is The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door, only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here, for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more." Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore?" This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore!" Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched upon my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marvelled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on the placid bust, spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before, on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore." Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, "Doubtless," said I, "what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs 100 bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore." But the raven, still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, O quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, is there balm in Gilead? Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if, within the distant Aidenn, it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, Nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore.
Wow, I'd say that's the definitive reading of this poem. I feel like I owe you something for this.
Well, if I can have your continued friendship, if we survive the reading of the Raven, Evan Carlson, that'll be plenty for me.
Yeah,
it's not often you read a whole thing like that. It's
I know
it's longer than some other things we've done here,
and it's almost like a novella in verse.
Well, it's a story. It's a story. It certainly is. And,
yeah,
and he's tortured. He's tortured by the memory of Lenore, and the Raven seeming to indicate that maybe Lenore is not in heaven. That's pretty sad, pretty tough thing to hear.
Well, it's interesting reading this poem right after we did 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird.
Yeah.
Because I think that is...
Yeah.
We were like, we might as well do the two most famous Blackbird poems. Is a raven a blackbird? It is a blackbird.
Blackbird. That's good enough for me.
Yeah, and so there's many ways of looking at it, but that poem is it's got such an eeriness to it that I think I read some of that into this as well. As the raven sits there and it's like, what is going on? This prophet
is going on, and one of the things reading it, I was kind of tossed between looking it over before the podcast recording. My typical way of reading poetry, certainly with a poetic turn, is to try to inhabit the poem with the intentions imagined of what the writer would want us to put out there. And so I live in more of a reality-based reciting of poetry and certainly language, and in my voiceover work, it's all about being conversational and real. And so I tried to have more of that in my reading of The Raven, and yet there are aspects of the poem that really inspire us or invite us to really and ignore the reality of it and the story and just kind of recite it. And I was pushing back against reciting and trying to live in the story, or maybe put forth the play of it.
Yeah, which I think he did. I mean, there's a lot of dialogue in this.
There is.
That's one thing that I remember. I mentioned Mark Yakic before, but in our episode with him, he said, he wants more poetry with dialogue, and I sort of hadn't thought about this as a dialogue poem, although it's one-sided. It is one-sided.
It certainly is. Sir, said I, or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. So doesn't even know it's a boy or girl raven.
Yeah. No, it's definitely interesting, and it's definitely the kind of poem that is worth hearing or reading at least once in your life.
Yeah. And of course, we're going to provide a link to this, as we always do, in the show notes. And as I was going through it, and Evan heard this, you listeners won't hear this, but I needed to stop and edit a couple of times because I wanted to land on the rhythm of the thing. There's a line here. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. Well, if you say, then this ebony bird no, it's got to be, then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling. You have to, so I had to redo that and some other places in this to kind of land it the right way.
Well, and that underlying rhythm of it, if you didn't follow that, it might be too slow. The rhythm kind of keeps it going because it is so long. It's the longest poem we've looked at, but the rhythm keeps it going. I mean, that happens in Shakespeare too. It sort of helps you drive it. Yeah.
I could have been even more dramatic. There are a lot of exclamation points in this. He's shouting at the bird. He's, prophet said, I think of evil. He's upset by this bird. As far as we know, Evan, that bird is still, never flitting, still is sitting, still.
Yeah.
And still is in italics there. And the raven never flitting, still is sitting, and that second still is in italics. So, Evan, that bird could still be on that bust right now.
Yeah. I think that it probably is. It's. I'm looking at the poem again right now, and it is interesting. There's some words and phrases that have come into the public mind. That first line is fairly popular. Yeah. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary. That's there.
Yeah.
And then also the Nevermore, Lenore, those things have permeated. I think they even do a version of this. Is it The Simpsons, I think?
Very likely.
There's things like that. It's been very influential. But it's I wonder how did people read this? Like, was this the kind of thing that they would return to again and again, or did they read it once and say, it's like a novel, I've just read it?
Yeah. I've just read it, okay, and I don't have to really reflect on it. It just, there it is.
Well, because it's not the kind, there's some poems that you want to return to again and again and again.
Some of the poems we featured on the Poetic Turn, yes, have a kind of ambiguity and a feeling, and they can generate such emotion and such connection. This is really, it's kind of all out there, this.
Well, and it is dramatic, because it's that's why I appreciate your reading of it, because it sort of needs to be dramatized a little bit. It's sort of, it's not a contemplative poem,
you don't read a line, and we've had poems that have been just shorter poems we've been able to talk about for 20 minutes or the entire length of a podcast. These poems that have so much to them. Yeah, it's kind of right out there, and you could make certain assumptions, or you could talk about it certainly, but it's kind of out there. It's on the surface, I think, more than some of the other things we read.
Yeah. Was it fun to read? Was it?
Yes, it was. It was fun. It was challenging because, as I indicated, I had to stop and go back a few times and fix things in my reading that I didn't feel like landed or weren't spoken in the right way or with the right rhythm. But very fun. And that's the first time I've ever recorded it, of course.
Yeah. Well, I'm just realizing I misspoke, because it is not a one-sided dialogue. The raven is responding.
That's
Nevermore.
true.
So I rescind my original statement for those listeners who heard me say that and caught it.
Now, his thoughts are somewhat one-dimensional, Evan. He doesn't have a lot to say, a lot of detail to share. But although the scholar or the narrator is interpreting the raven saying things, even though the raven only says that one word, he's inferring, the listener or the narrator is inferring certain things that the raven is saying.
And so is the raven speaking, or is this, I mean, it's like the owl that I remember I had a teacher in elementary school, and I forget the name of the owl now, but she would say this owl, the way that it hoots, it's saying, "Who cooks for you?" Because it would say, who cooks for you? Who cooks for you? You know, and so is he just hearing this Nevermore is out of the crow, or is this a speaking raven demon?
Well, first of all, crows are not ravens.
Or raven, yes.
Yeah, and
another.
It's like 94, and the feels-like temperature today is like 100.
And in tiny recording closets upstairs, it gets even hotter.
Oh, my heart goes out to you. Yeah, the raven, and saw some ravens on the East Coast, and they are really interestingly different from the crows we have here in the Midwest, and they're bigger and stranger. Yeah, they really are.
Because a crow is it's a little more casual, a little more throwaway, but a raven does have that piercingness to it.
And they can be taught to talk. So the raven almost certainly said, "Nevermore."
Really?
Nevermore. I believe so. I'm almost certain the ravens can be taught to speak. And so that raven was almost certainly, or Poe's raven, I think we're supposed to infer that he was actually saying the word.
So I wonder who taught this raven Nevermore.
Yeah.
That's the real question.
That's the question. And were they just doing it to bedevil the narrator? They knew that he was still hung up on Lenore and wanted to torture him, maybe?
Yeah. It could be. You know, that's the kind of thing that you might not have thought of had you not listened to this podcast.
Well, there's so many things you wouldn't think of had you not listened to this podcast. Yeah. Well, now let's go ahead, Evan. What I'd like to do is you and I will listen to that recording that I sent you of the four guys standing around singing their version of the Raven, and then on the other side of it, we'll come back and talk some more.
Sure thing.
Okay, we're going to set the poetry.
We all set? The Raven by Mr. Edgar Allan Poe.
Fast, scary sheep. Dooby-dooby-doo, where are you? I need some help from you. Over many a quaint and curious volume. That's scary. Oh, God. God. What? of someone gently rapping.
Rapping. Guys standing around, you know we're singing out too. I need you.
Chamber door.
'Tis some visitor.
I mutter.
Tapping at my chamber door. Oh, this and nothing more.
More.
You know,
Dum 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 ow. Dum 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 ow.
the four guys standing around singing. They might want to do this tune nice and easy, but we never easy. We like to do things nice and rough. So that's how Eddie and the Poe boys are gonna do. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Who once upon a midnight reel while upon a beacon weary over many quinny trees, why am I forgotten? Not a nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. The harmonic tapping at my chamber door, only this and nothing more. I distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and its separate dying ember brought its ghost upon. Eagerly I wish tomorrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books to cease the sorrow for the lost and known, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name will know, name was healed forevermore. This is a tale of mad obsession. The mad obsession of a man who drinks too goddamn much, let's face it. A man who thinks too much about his baby. His baby who's dead. She's in the ground. She ain't around. She ain't no more. We gonna tell you all about it. Ha ha ha! Oh, what's her name? Lenore. That's her name. That's her name. She's dead. No mas. Kaput. In a box with a lid in the ground. Lenore. The fact that his baby is dead. What we haven't told you is that Eddie is crazy. He's a psychopath. The lights are on, ain't nobody home. You dig? And the last thing he needs is a big black bird coming into the room, squatting on the mantelpiece and talking to him. Says one thing. What's it say? Nevermore, nevermore, nevermore. That's what he says, what he says, what he says. Oh yeah, he does a clack in his beak. Oh yeah, he does a flap on his wings. Nevermore, nevermore. Come on, everybody. I know you got the craving. Come and rock it with me. We're talking about the Raven. Say Q-U-O-T-H-T-H-E. Raven, Q-U-O-T-H-T-H-E. Raven, Q-U-O-T-H-T-H-E. Raven, Q-U-O-T-H-T-H-E. Raven, and the Raven never thinks. Still sitting on the just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the stream. All the demons that is dreaming. And the lamplight who streaming throws his shadow on. And my soul from out the shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Nevermore. Lenore. Lenore. Craning through his volume of forgotten, while I'm on a kneeling, napping, suddenly there came a tapping as if someone gently rapping at my chamber door. Tis and beers a true amount of tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Only this and nothing more. Only this and nothing more. Only this and nothing. Teapot short and stout. Quoth the raven. Quoth the raven. Quoth the raven in the morning.
Thank you. We are four guys standing around singing.
Thank you.
So we just listened to the four guys standing around singing, doing the musical version of The Raven from 1988, 89, something like that. And that group had a unique take on that song. And there's something I was saying to Evan before we started recording today. This is a song that we developed this version of The Raven over many months. And so there are things that occurred. In the life of this group, there were humorous things that happened. We'd incorporate them into the show, that we add to it. And it's the same with this version of The Raven. Very strange. Kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting that that this poem was your encore, or your finale, your grand finish.
It was, and it kind of killed. It kind of always did well for us as a finale.
Yeah. Well, and you know what you all did right is to sing it really fast.
Well, we didn't do every stanza. No. We didn't every word of the poem, but certainly, yeah.
Well, interestingly, there's a new Hunger Games book, and it basically ends with I think, if I remember right, the entirety of The Raven, and it's supposedly in this, it's become a folk song, and at the end of the book, you read it, you just read The Raven and imagine that they're singing it. But in my head, I was like, this has got to be the longest folk song ever written. So they're going to have a movie soon, so I wonder how they'll do it, and if they'll go as fast as four guys standing around singing did.
Well, at the end there, yeah, I think it's a poem that seems to bear slowing down and diving in. I don't know. I mean, if you're going to quote it in a song, you got to kind of zip through all the antiquated language in some respects. But
yeah.
Well, you're very kind for indulging me, Evan, to listen to that. You've listened to it twice today. I made you listen to it twice today.
Yeah. Was there anything you wanted to say about the song? Any particular performance aspects of it?
Well,
paint a picture.
There are aspects like we're acting these things out, they're in our bodies and our hands and our expressions. So if there's a pause, if there's an image, duplicate that on stage in front of an audience, and it was very funny. It was highly amusing, and there's a reason it became our encore song. People just really dug it, and it's so kind of crazy. It's kind of hard to do anything after that, really. So,
yeah, you can't really. Yeah, you can't really say no. We're going to finish with "Where Have All the Flowers Gone."
No, you certainly cannot. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening to us today, listening to the Poetic Turn, for indulging us with this very, very famous poem. And again, we were talking about blackbirds on our last podcast, so I thought we'd bring in perhaps the most famous blackbird in all of English literature, and we thank you for indulging us. The world is funny, Evan. There is a possible universe where Steve Poe, the guy you encountered in the bookstore that
to be... I only thought of that halfway through talking about him, but it would be cool if you listened.
So Steve Poe, it's likely you're not related to Edgar Allan Poe because he had no children. But if you do hear this, reach out to us. You know, you're allowed to skip right. You don't have to listen to every single episode of the Poetic Turn podcast. We encourage you to do so, but maybe you saw the words "The Raven" and it brought you to the podcast, or it made you skip this episode of it, or you realized with this episode that we were not serious at all and you'll never listen to us again. I don't know, Evan. What do you think they'll think?
Yeah, if you're a high school student who somehow stumbled upon this for your project and also listened to it.
That's a very good point. You might have stumbled on, yeah. You may not have listened to the whole thing.
You're going to go far in life.
Yes, young person,
Yeah.
Indeterminate person.
If you have any questions about the Raven, you can ask us anytime. Shoot a comment to that high schooler. But ask your teacher, because they'll probably know more.
They'll know more, but reach out to us. We appreciate all questions, all information, and if there's a poem you'd like us to feature, maybe one that's not quite so famous, Evan.
Yeah, we've done some not so famous poems.
We have.
Yeah, that's our thing.
This is perhaps the most well-known poem that we may ever do on the Poetic Turn.
Yeah, we finally sold out.
Because again, as we've said multiple times before, we are doing a poetry podcast for the dollars, for the greenbacks. That's why we're here.
Yes, indeed. We're going to invest it.
Well, for Evan Carlson, I'm Darren Stevens. Good to see you as always, Evan.
Good to see you.
And we'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all stripes. We'll see you the next time here at the Poetic Turn.